the Irish Mags Show. It is episode 113. I'm Paul. I'll be your host. I'm just with Alan this week. Crisho is, well, in football manager terms, Alan, we'd say he's red injured, but he has told us he's on call. Whoever's calling Crisho in times of need, good luck to you. But clearly in our time of need, he's not here. But Alan, how are you doing? How was your week on?
Not too bad. Come here, an awful lot better now that we've finally gotten ourselves a decent result, and I can be happy about winning a game of football again. Thank God.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. In fairness, like I've had an interesting week. I was in Toronto for like 5 days, so I was over there for the Brentford game, and I dragged the two boys that were with me to the pub 12:30 in the day.
Nice.
The pub was only open at 12. We got there and the pub wasn't even open. Actually went to a bar which was it's basically the Toon Army Toronto bar. So actually met a few of those there as well. They eventually got in. Like, they weren't there as early as we were now, in fairness, which was surprising to see.
Shock horror that you got there early for the pub. Yeah,
who would have seen that coming? But good God, like, the lads obviously with me, there was one Chelsea fan and one Man United fan, and they were basically just kind of saying, "Our Newcastle always is poor," because good grief, like, we were terrible against.
We were awful.
I don't know. I couldn't believe what was unfolding in front of me.
No.
And that's half the topic of what we'll be discussing this week, because we might have a little chat about how basically what happened against Brentford and what happens against Spurs has almost divided the fan base, I think, coming out of the Brentford game. A lot of negativity, a lot of discussion about the manager, a lot of discussion about the summer transfer window. And then we go and we beat Spurs away to pick up our third away win of the season in the Premier League. And suddenly there's a lot more chirpiness around the place, let's say, and a bit more belief in what's happening. So we'll chat about that. And then we're going to move our attention over to a rumour that's been circulating and tweeted as recently as today, the day of recording, which is Thursday, mainly from Craig Hope, who has been talking about the likelihood of Newcastle ending up in a multi-club ownership or network, which is interesting considering we technically already are in one with the other Saudi PIF clubs, but it seems to be more whereby we might be connected to other clubs, let's say in Europe or in South America and beyond.
But they also won't let us use the Saudi clubs because it's not allowed, even though every other multi-club is allowed to do it.
Well, we're going to discuss it all on this week's podcast, and we're going to roll our sleeves up and look at what it might mean for the club. What are the pros, the cons, and what, I suppose, how it looks for other clubs in terms of how they've been benefiting from it. So, interesting podcast today, Alan, to say the least. But let's quickly just talk about, do you know what? I don't want to start on a negative. Let's talk about the Spurs game.
Yeah.
Because I think coming out of the Brentford game, which was at home, where we're supposed to win football matches, that's literally how it works, especially for Newcastle United. We've been so poor away that I think the best I could have foreseen, and I put it down in my Super 6 that I do every week, was a draw. And I thought, do you know what, a draw, as bad as Spurs are and as all the injuries they have, we were so poor against Brentford. We're so low on confidence. The morale is just in the mud. I thought, there's no way we're going to come out of here with a win. And that opening 15 minutes, or maybe the opening half, we were just dominating. We were all over them. And the first question is, Al, like, summing up the performance, were we actually good, or were they just piss poor?
Yes, we were actually good, and yes, they were just piss poor. I
don't the ideal recipe.
We didn't let them play football. It was the first game the press has been back, really, and it shows how vital Anthony Gordon is for this side. When he plays well, we play well. So it's really important to get Anthony Gordon playing well again so that we can go on a bit of a run. But I thought having him up front really changed how our entire team played, and it really made a big difference. Look, Wissa hasn't worked yet. Not saying he won't work. Valtamada had a good start. Hasn't really worked the last couple of weeks. I actually said in the group chat, on the Irish Mags chat on Friday night, I was like, I'd start Asula. That was my answer to a bit of chaos. Like, I was like, he came on the last couple of games. He hasn't looked terrible. Just throw him in, see what he does. But Gordon was outstanding. Elanga was outstanding. Ramsey was brilliant. Willock was absolutely robbed of a goal. If he had a shaped head, he would have got another one. But everything we done right. And it's not often we say we got hit with a bit of a sucker punch when Spurs got it. Like, they didn't have a chance, really, other than when Tell blazed over the bar. The corner was the only time they really got into our box. It It was a well-worked corner, and it was not a foul. I heard a couple of people saying that Pope was blocked off. It wasn't. That's not a foul. Don't be giving me that. It's well-worked corner, well-worked goal. It's the only time they got near us. They got their goal from it. I was really worried it was going to be another typical, we're going to concede 3 here now and lose, but we showed a bit of character, a bit of grit. We got a proper performance out of an awful lot of players when we're missing a good few players as well. So it absolutely brilliant. It was so badly needed from us. It was brilliant all around, I thought.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. And actually, it's rare I would go back and watch an entire game. You might go back and look at highlights or extended highlights, but I'd never go back. It's rare to go back and watch a 90, but I've been awful tempted just to get my head around. Okay, Ramsey was really, really good in this game. You know, Alanga is showing much better signs of confidence. But it comes back to that question, you know, was this because Spurs stood off? Was this because Spurs were missing 15 players? Was it because they're just poor and then they sacked their manager as a result? That's 2 Spurs managers sacked, by the way, after we hammered.
Yeah.
So, love that. And it alarms me a little bit because Brentford came to Newcastle and they were very well coached. They were very well organised. You could see what their game plan was. You could see them targeting our weaknesses. And that was, in theory, a rookie manager against one of the more experienced managers in the league. And whereas Newcastle couldn't see what our game plan was. It was one-dimensional. It was predictable. It was what we've seen throughout the season. And it alarms me when you get this team that has this clear game plan, that wants to strangle us in certain areas of the pitch, to target specific players, and just is extremely well coached. It makes us look not very well coached. It's terrible grammar now, but it makes us look like we don't have a game plan. Now, you always have a game plan, but when a team comes along that's more organised, targets our weaknesses and targets some specific players in terms of when they're attacking us, and also, you know, when we're attacking them, we just fall apart. And that didn't happen with Spurs because Spurs were desperate. I mean, they were really poor, and they are a poor side, and they've been really poor under Thomas Frank. We've won 3 away games all season. They've won like 3 home games since.
They've won 2 home games. We've won more away games than they have won at home, which is an insane stat.
Yeah, you just can't get away with that. No. So no wonder he was sacked. But it's hard to get too excited about it. As great as it was to get an away win against, you know, what's supposed to be a big club in this league, it still doesn't fill me with confidence because, again, if we were to come up against a Bournemouth or maybe not Palace in their current state, but Palace from 6 months ago, or Fulham as they are now, they're well drilled, they're well organised, they know what they're doing, they know what their strengths are, they know what their weaknesses are, and it just alarms me that we're more easy to target. And I think this comes back to things we've said before. Teams maybe don't fear us in terms of how we're going to play in our system, and then where teams do fear us is the physicality and the intensity. But when we don't do that, we're very easy to beat. We
are, but we actually changed how we played against Spurs. We went to this diamond press in the middle. So I was reading this big tactical analysis there yesterday about it, and essentially we went in the midfield. The 3 midfielders and Anthony Gordon acted as a diamond. So one of the wingers pushed out, 2 of the centre midfielders pushed out. One of them went into the 6, and Anthony Gordon kind of dropped in and just suffocated everything Spurs tried to do. They tried to play out from the back, couldn't do it. When they couldn't do that, they tried to go out to the full-backs, but the wingers had them boxed off. So it meant that Vicario either had to try split a pass in between 2 centre-halves that were being marked or go long, and he was aiming long balls at either Dan Burn, who was winning everything, or he was aiming them at Trippier, but Malik Chow was coming over and doubling up and winning everything. So we were really, really comfortable. And it was the first time where I've looked at Newcastle, and it was only after I really went through this big tactical, I'm not going to say I done it, some guy on Twitter done it, and I went through the whole thing, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's the first time we've actually changed up how we play. Not for that we're just going 4-3-3 all out, gang and pressing, mad, running around. We did things tactically, and I was very, very impressed because he showed pictures to go along with it, which always makes things an awful lot easier. And I just thought we were excellent. We did everything right, bar when we conceded, and that was just pretty much a fluke from a corner. There wasn't much we could really do about it, but really did think we were excellent.
So here's my question to you. Here's my 3 questions to you. Like, parking the fact that we have Villa in the Cup now, which you could argue the Cup is a bit different, but if we were going into, let's say, another Premier League game this weekend, Number one, are we able to recreate? Now we don't. I'm not saying we have to play the same system because your opponent is different, but are we able to recreate that ability to deploy a system and have that game plan and execute it? Number two, is that possible? You know, is Eddie Howe going to look at it and go, well, I need to reward Willock and Ramsey and Gordon, and that the success of that victory is based on the personnel that started rather than the system? Because in theory, if that's your system, you should be able to plug and play players in and out of it. But the biggest question for me, number three, are we just not playing strikers anymore? Are we strikerless? When you've got three strikers who combined 140 million, granted Osula is a small percentage of that, we're just kind of, we've reached a point where we're better off without them. And that to me is alarming and a bit crazy. But if it works, it works. I don't know.
Yes, it's alarming if we don't play with a striker. There's no point bringing in 130 million worth of strikers and then having the 15 million quid Osula sitting on the bench if you're not going to use them. But let's be very honest about it. The last 10, 12 games, Walter Mata has not been up for it. Since he came in, Wissa just really hasn't hit the ground running at all. He's got a couple of goals, but he's looked sluggish. He's looked just off the boil. Gordon up top hasn't worked every single time we've tried it, but it really worked the weekend. So he can do it. He won the under-21s Euros, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was player of the tournament playing as a false nine. But again, we've that comes up a lot. That was 2 years ago. And also, you know, you're looking at the caliber of competition and, again, a very well-coached England side under Lee Carsley.
But we also have Elanga and Barnes playing on his favoured left side, running by Gordon when he's dropping into that false nine. So it's a more fluid attack, and it's a more Eddie Howe attack, because we keep harping on about him. We still play the way we played when we had Isak. We brought in a £69 million striker in Walter Mata who wants to drop deep and play as a false nine, but more of a 10 really. He needs another player up with him. When he was at Stuttgart, he always had someone in and around him. We never really do. The other thing I liked about us at the weekend was Ramsey was getting an awful lot more forward. Out of the three midfielders, he was essentially he wasn't a 10.
He said himself in his post-match interview. It was kind of saying it without saying it. He was basically, I got to play a lot further forward, and he was kind of just saying how he likes that he can be box to box, but he clearly wants to and is better if he's given that freedom to be in a much more advanced role. And I mean, he's not the same player at all, but like somebody like Phil Foden thrives in that role because he's given that free role.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to worry about tracking back and lugging yourself up and down because players probably don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then they're so quick to punish if they get that little half space. The vision is there, the connectivity. But it was interesting that he said it himself.
I just thought everything clicked. Everything we wanted to happen happened. Like Willock being offside was just very unlucky. Like it arguably could have been
fingernails.
Yeah, like
that's what the VAR thing showed. It honestly, I couldn't believe it. Like even looking at it live and when they were free, I was like, in no world should this be offside, even if there's a millimeter. I get it, like space, whatever.
What happened to the 5 centimeter difference that Liverpool got away with when Wirtz was offside? Now, I said something to my mates and they actually totally agreed with me. So I said, whatever body part you score with should be the body part they look at. So,
and I was saying it to somebody else, it should be a part of your body that actually matters in the game, which is your feet, your chest, and your head. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Willock's hands being outside, you can't score with your hands. So that's a moot point. Like it was literally his forehead.
The line was through when you looked at the little animation, the cartoon, basically. The fingers, the tips of his fingers were coloured in black because it was through the line. That's absolutely madness. No, it's crazy.
It was bullshit, is what that was. It's insane. I can guarantee you, if that goal went in and it was Manchester City playing against us, and Haaland scored the goal, that goal counts. And that's a real conspiracy theory thing, but I think it happens.
There's been less uproar about it because we won. If we didn't win,
oh Jesus,
there'd be a lot of uproar about this, like social media and so on, and probably more commentary about it from the likes of Shearer or pundits or whoever.
Yeah.
But I think VAR have gotten away with it in that it didn't actually impact the result, but it easily could have. And I don't really understand how that benefits anybody in football if you're going down to his fingernails a worse
Offside
fringe
was
for
brought
accident.
in to stop strikers sitting in the box. It was for
Stop goal
hatching.
hanging. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's what it was brought in to do. That's not what this is stopping anymore. This is stopping a centre midfielder bursting through and scoring a goal. Like,
Yeah.
that's not like it's. I don't know. I just
It's
don't
nuts.
understand
Anyway,
it.
we're not going to solve it here.
VAR doesn't work because I know it doesn't affect us. The goal they took off Man City against Liverpool. What in the name
Yes.
of Jesus was that? Like, what are they doing? What are they getting involved in crap like that for? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
This is where you're going back to just you're going back to, for me, two things. One is like everything is black and white, everything is
Yeah.
the rules, and it's, you know, you're trying to be really like that. That doesn't work in football. Two, I think there are decisions being made by people who've never really played football at a high level or played at that in that team level to really understand all of that. It was like the ref that booked, was it David Moyes? Because they got like a last gasp equalizer or
Oh,
winner,
he came onto the
a week or
pitch.
two ago.
Yeah.
And he obviously he's going mental, and they've booked him for it, and it's like you've never clearly celebrated a moment like that.
Yeah.
Do you know?
You've never been happy once in your life.
Oh, refs and VAR, the joys of
Yes.
it all. But anyway, as I said, thankfully it didn't matter.
Yes.
And it was a big bounce back, let's say, from that horrible result against Brentford, which it just, again, the more you look back on it, the more you think it's nothing against Brentford. Brentford were the better team and deserved to win. They were better coached and they executed their game plan much better. But we're supposed to be Newcastle United at home. These are the games where we're supposed to make it so difficult for teams to get a result, and that's not what happened at all. So the lads have done well to bounce back, but just to sum it all up, the Brentford result really caused a lot of anti-Eddie Howe campaigns, and obviously talking about the transfer window, you know, talking about Anthony Langa, even Jacob Ramsey, Wissa, the amount of money that was spent on them, people kind of arguing that these are Eddie Howe signings, this whole discussion around how much power and influence Eddie Howe has, and it very much has caused like ruptures and arguments in the fan base. Luke Edwards in particular getting a lot of grief for being a very much a pro Eddie Howe journalist, let's say. But at the same time, he's not the only one. There's a big portion of the fan base that are very much pro Eddie Howe, some anti. All of a sudden, then Newcastle go and win. It almost feels like that's just calmed everything down. But for how long? That's how unstable I'd say it is at the moment. But what are your thoughts on it, Al? In terms of after that Brentford game, were you on either side of that divide in terms of how you were thinking about going forward?
I have never been Eddie Howe out. I have been Eddie Howe needs to make a change or something will give. I've never once said it's time for Eddie to go. And then, unless he does something absolutely catastrophic, I can't see myself within the next little while being Eddie Howe out, because I don't think we've had a full squad at all this year, which is insane to say. I don't think we've had a 1 week where we go, we've no injuries. I don't think we've had. Now, look, don't get me wrong, but it's always important players. It's always a Bruno. It's always a Tonali. It's always a Hall, or it's always Livramento. And you're going, when you're replacing Hall and Livramento with Mighty going into right back, or maybe Trippier, and you're just going, what are we meant to be doing here? It changes how we play. So I've been very sympathetic towards what was happening, but in the same sense, I also turned around and was like, right, the 4-3-3 just going hell for leather Gegenpressing hasn't worked with the players we have. Howe needs to change something. He has changed something. We've gotten a result out of it. I'm sick saying it has to be the catalyst for something to bounce on and to get a bit of a momentum going. 3 or 4 times he said, this will be the one where we get a bit of momentum. It really has to be the time we get a bit of momentum. Now, don't get me wrong. Villa in the Cup is going to be incredibly tough. City away is going to be absolutely awful.
It's a hard time to kick off a run.
Yeah, it's not the greatest of times, but I don't mind going to. I know I'm going to caveat this. I don't want to lose, but I don't mind going to Villa Park and losing if we put on a performance. I don't mind going to the Empty Hat or the City of Manchester, whatever you call it, and losing so long as we put on a performance. If we go to Villa Park and get stuffed 4-0 and go to the City of Manchester and get beaten 5-0, I'd be going, what are we doing here? It's the same shit over and over again. But there are some green shoots of momentum can be built on here. So it does look good. And come here, Eddie Howe won as our first trophy in 70 years. Cast your mind back to when the fans hounded Sir Bobby Robson out after finishing 5th in the league. What happened? We fucking free fell. sometimes
We
you
brought
don't
in
know
Graham
what you.
Souness.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And I am a firm believer in Eddie Howe is one of the best managers in the world. And don't get me wrong, he's not in the top echelon of managers, but he is exactly what we need right now. And he is the right man for the job. He was linked to the Man United job. He's linked to the England job. He's linked to top jobs. What are we talking about sacking him for at the minute? Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me. But that doesn't mean that I agree with everyone.
I think it's just that frustration. And, you can argue we are where we are and we're doing okay. We're not miles off where we would want to be. But I think some of the arguments I've seen is like, yeah, well, sure, we've won games, but we barely beat Leeds and we've barely beat, whoever, and we've lost West Ham, and just even when we've won, we've not been great. Whereas in the past, you've seen us win emphatically. When we've been good, we've been great. And then you get your other points by being really hard to play against, by the intensity, making it difficult for teams. Whereas this season, the difference feels like, well, when we've won, we've barely won. And when we've lost, we've been rolled over. And I think that's where some of the frustration comes from. I agree in terms of there's no point sacking him, or there's no point doing anything now in February.
No.
Like that's insane. I think he's right to get criticism. The biggest change for me was what he was saying himself after that Brentford game. He himself was saying, like, I don't know, I need to do more. This is on me. It was dejected almost in terms of how he was speaking.
It was honest. It's
honest,
really
the fire needs to be lit there, both under him and under the players. Like a lot of those players, maybe some of them are fed up, or they, they're thinking about their futures, or they're bored of Eddie Howe because they've been with him so long. It's like, lads, look at the teams and players who are looking so much better and stronger than you. How are you going to get yourself a move if you're showing to be worse than a lot of other, what we would consider to be inferior or average players in the league? So it's crazy.
It is. And there's a couple of players that really have to start putting in performances between now and the end of the season, especially centre midfielder Sandro Tonali. He came off the bench on Saturday and was absolutely stinking. He was brutal. There was a ball came down to him, took a touch, 6 yards away from him, just gave the ball away, and it was like 6 months ago. Sandro Tonali takes that ball down, kills it, beats his man, and is it away. I also seen the stat that he hasn't got a goal or an assist all season. And I'm just going like, what's changed?
Yeah.
He was linked to a move away and all of a sudden forgot how to play football. If you want to move away, prove you're worthy of going to the aside, because I'm not being funny or that. If clubs are looking at him now, they're going to be like, he's not worth 18 million that Newcastle are going to want for him. We've spent 55 on him. We're going to have to make a profit on him.
He's not going to be worth whatever he might want, 250k a week. They're going to say, well, you're not proving yourself to be a 250k a week player. So I get it, yeah. And he's not the only one. Jesus, I mean, it's easy to pick on Tonali.
Oh yeah.
And there was talks that he was ill and he's had a baby and there's all kinds of things, but he's one of quite a few that need to do more.
Yes.
I do think, Trippier came under a lot of backlash against Brentford. He was a lot better against Tottenham, but again, a pinch of salt because Tottenham were just that poor. There is a little bit to be said, like, Eddie Howe should have been backed in January. I do think that we are really struggling in some of those fullback spots, like when we had Trippier and Dan Burn as your fullbacks going into a Premier League game. Alarm bells are ringing, and you do feel like we might get punished against a lot of other sides with quicker wingers or better wingers or more informed wingers. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, was that an isolated incident? Can we put in kind of similar performances against Villa and Man City, and then from there start winning games that we should be winning? It will alarm me if we continue not playing with either of these strikers and not finding a way. Voltemade was scoring goals in September and October. We probably wouldn't be where we are in the league without those goals. It'll be alarming if we end up going for the rest of the season with this technically strikerless formation.
But Barnes played well, Elanga played well, Gordon played well. Who do you drop?
There's a lot of games left to play. I just think we need to find a way of having them in. They can't play, those three lads, or they can't play every game. These strikers are going to need to play games. There's 130 odd million sitting there. We need to find ways of getting them into the squad and getting them performing well and supplying them and bringing them into the game. And if we don't get that done, that is a failure. You might say, Eddie Howe didn't want those players, or they aren't Isaac. to go a whole season not getting any of those strikers firing when
No,
other teams seem to be able to replace and continue. Yeah, that wouldn't bode well, but
no.
that's for future Paul and future Alan to discuss, I think. Right, we are going to take a quick break, even though this is a lot less tiring without Krisho here. But we're going to take a little commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss the rumoured move towards a multi-club model for Newcastle United and what that might entail. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. A huge thank you to our podcast sponsors of the Irish Mag Show. The Half Volley, providers of high-quality, customizable clothing and merchandise catering for all sports teams, businesses, social clubs and events. FSH Training Limited, a team of expert frontline paramedics and firefighters delivering first aid, fire safety, manual handling and patient handling for all business environments. And JH Fitness, an Irish-based online coaching business specialising in sustainable fat loss, lifestyle change and long-term health for real-world men and women. Support local. Check out all of our partner sponsor links in the podcast description. Welcome back to the Irish Mags Show. Alan Williamson, can you tell all of our listeners in your most educated and expert voice, what is a multi-club ownership model?
So a multi-club ownership model is where I'm going to use Man City as an example because they're probably I think they have the most clubs in the multi-club ownership, don't they?
They're up there, yeah.
Basically, Man City are at the top level and they are the big boys and X, Y, and Z. Underneath them, there will be New York FC and several other clubs.
New York City Football Club, you've got Girona, you've got Melbourne City. There's about, I want to say 11 clubs, Palermo are in there, all under what's called the City Group, basically.
Yes. So they are essentially Manchester City and 10 feeder clubs. I hate using that term, but that's what it is. They're 10 feeder clubs because if a player in the league is good, what happens is they just go and buy that player, or they try to buy that player, and then that player eventually moves on to Man City for less than what he'd have to buy if Man City went into, I think they done it with a player from Melbourne where he was playing for, I think he was actually playing for the Newcastle Jets. Melbourne signed him, and then 6 months later he was playing for City, and you're going, well, that's just not right. But it is right because it's the best way to get around these FFP and this. An awful lot of it's to do with Brexit because you can't sign for a club until after you're 18 now, and the best way they can do it is to get their feeder clubs to buy them in Europe, and they're then based in Europe, and they can just go, well, he's played for 3 years in Europe already. We can just bring him straight in. He's a couple of international caps. It's a loophole essentially, but it's also a great way of getting feeder clubs. Like look at Strasbourg. They have your man David Datro Fofana up front playing for them, scoring goals left, right, and centre. And Chelsea just went, all right, yeah, that's grand. 25 million. If Newcastle had went in for him, he was 50 million. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I think it's Omega. Is it Omega?
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, they did it with Fofana as well.
They signed him before. I don't know if it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was. Yeah.
I think it was.
They've agreed to sign the current Strasbourg striker now is your man Omega, and he's also banging in goals, and now he's going to go to Chelsea. But you summed it up perfectly. It is that whole idea that these clubs are under the same ownership.
Yes.
There is usually an alpha, like we said,
Yes.
in that case, Man City or Chelsea. The Red Bull network is another example of it, and there's quite a lot. We're going to go through some of them, but by and large, the idea is that clubs share resources. There's financial benefits. There's marketing and exposure, pathways for players between clubs, loans and transfers, the whole lot. And while there are a lot of positives, there are also some negatives that come with this. And I think the Chelsea Strasbourg one has been a very big example because Strasbourg are clearly so this is all under Bluco, which is your man Todd Bowley, who basically thinks he's playing Football Manager all the time. And while Strasbourg have benefited because they've had a lot of players come on loan from Chelsea, so Andre Santos, your man Penders, the goalkeeper, there was 2 or 3 more whose names are already Malang Sarr, I think his name is. They've benefited by getting those players over, but obviously those players have to go back, and then ultimately, like Alan said, the second Strasbourg have a star player, or in this case a manager, Chelsea just say, right, you're coming with us. And the fans starting to feel like they're losing a bit of their identity.
Yes.
And I think it's conflict of interest. There's, their needs aren't prioritized when there's a bigger fish who are deemed more important by the owners.
The other issue is if you go and buy a side and you book it into the European competition, that's not allowed. One of the sides has to either drop out or drop into a lower echelon of Europe. I think it nearly happened with Brighton and Union Saint-Gilloise. So Brighton got the Europa League a couple of years ago, and Union were on par to get the Europa League, and they were like, oh God, what's going to happen here? And because Union were going to finish second or third in their league, that would have been a better finishing position than Brighton finishing seventh, I think it was. It's very complicated, but there are some weird rules. But
is it like if me and you were both driving for Ferrari in the F1, and you know there used to be, I don't know if it still happens, it's a long time since I really followed F1, but it would be a case of like when you're looking at the overall standings that you'd be told to let me pass you, like that's
so that you can win the championship. Yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah,
it's not the exact same, but I get you. And it happened with Crystal Palace and Leon. They're technically not in the same model, let's say, in terms of like an ownership model, but your man John Textor has a big stake in both. So Palace qualified for Europa League, as did Leon, and the Palace ended up getting thrown into the Conference League. And Nottingham Forest moved up a tier, and that obviously incredibly unfair to Palace and their fans. They won the FA Cup fair and square and beat Man City. So like that's where the negatives come into this, because the owners just either didn't know it, weren't aware, didn't expect it, don't care, who knows. But the ones that suffer in that case are the club, the players, and the fans. And
what actually happened Palace,
there? They lost all their best players, and now they're in a real rut, and their manager's going to leave.
What happened there was John Textor just didn't believe Palace were going to get into Europe, so he just literally went, "That's grand. I'll just." There's a form you can fill out where you can say, "Oh, I'm going to relinquish X, Y, and Z," and he didn't do it on time. He did it after the FA Cup final, but it had to be in before April or something like that, and that's why Palace didn't get into Europe, which is a mental thing to say.
That is, I mean, it's wild, and again, like the injustice of it all from a Palace perspective, to suffer as a result. I can understand why it's there, and maybe it should be there. This came up as well when your man Radcliffe, who's a dick, a lot of talk about him in the media today, chirping on about immigrants in the UK, and he lives in Monaco.
When he's an immigrant, fucking gobshite.
Crazy. We don't do politics on this podcast, but we're allowed when Christian's not here. Yeah. But the whole they obviously own Nice in France, and there was a season where I think they both ended up in the Champions League. So there are loopholes again, but it's going to become more prevalent. And for us as Newcastle United fans, it may become more prevalent. Craig Hope tweeted this out today. He does his column in the Daily Mail, and one of the sections was about Saudi plans for a multi-club network. I'll just read a paragraph of it. But basically, Craig Hope is saying that Newcastle staff have been told to prepare for an expansion into a multi-club model, in the biggest indicator yet that a Saudi-owned network will enter mainland Europe. So as we said, we are already in a multi-club ownership with PIF, because PIF own a bunch of Saudi clubs, but technically not with any, obviously, European clubs or beyond. Belgium are mentioned in this article, France is mentioned in this article, and there's a bit of talk about what Alan pointed out earlier, what this could mean for under-18 players and Brexit and so on and so forth. Now, what would this mean for Newcastle United? I suppose the easiest way to think about it, Al, would be, well, what's happening with other clubs at the moment? We've mentioned Man City, we've mentioned Chelsea because they're the alpha dogs. The Red Bull model one is interesting as well. And where it really shows up for Red Bull, there's Red Bull are just loving it because it's branding and exposure, and there's just everybody knows Red Bull. We only know it from Jaeger bombs. But when you think about for the actual clubs themselves, I think the easiest way to process what it could mean is when you look at transactions between these clubs. And Red Bull Salzburg, who are Austria, and obviously Red Bull Leipzig in Germany, there has been a lot of movement between those two clubs, and it's usually one way. Salzburg tend to win that league quite often. They do develop the best players, and those that are good enough end up being fed straight through to RB Leipzig. Probably Haaland was the only exception when he went to Dortmund, when you think about it.
I think so,
Wasn't he at Salzburg? But anyway, Benjamin Šeško went from Salzburg to Leipzig. Dominik Szoboszlai went from Salzburg to Leipzig. Like think about those names now. Yeah. Both have gone on, huge fees and everything that goes with it. That's come through that Red Bull model. Other examples, like you already mentioned, Brighton and USG, who we know from the Champions League. Mitoma went from USG to Brighton, and not many people would know that. So it opens up, we talk a lot about, we wish Newcastle would recruit more from mainland Europe, and the scouting network would be beyond the Premier League or more recognised players. this model can help you actually do that.
Yes.
If you're connected with good clubs, that good academy systems, or have good recruitment, it allows you to kind of leverage some of that. And the most recent one that stood out to me, and I knew this player from Football Manager, of course,
Yes.
and had forgotten that these two clubs are linked, which is Bournemouth signing your man Junior L.A. Krupi
Yes.
from Lorient in France, and he has completely hit the ground running in the Premier League, scored a bunch of goals already. And again, that's come from having this existing relationship and this shared model and this ownership. So again, these are all pros. Not that we're definitely advocating for it, because at the end of the day, some of those clubs are suffering in terms of losing players and staff.
Yeah.
But then they're benefiting because they're getting cash.
It's always
question
great
is
to be
that
the
enough?
top dog in it. It's always great to be the top dog in it. Like if Newcastle were bought and they were told, "Oh yeah, you're going to be a feeder club to them," I'd be horrified. Like I'd be absolutely
you'd be
devastated.
amazed. You couldn't see it happening because of the financial strength of the Premier League.
But that's what I mean. But like, yeah.
Because it's rare that a Premier League club isn't the alpha in the model.
That's the only saving grace for us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I think where it would benefit us is if we, again, I wouldn't like to see it become like the Chelsea model, whereby it's you end up with far too many players and it's just all a bit crazy, and the players themselves are stuck in the middle of it. You've got Chelsea kind of manager coming in and he's got like 45 players to try and satisfy, players being thrown around, loans and everything, and then the feeder club then are trying to like, okay, we'll take these and try and make it work, and then there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't really want to go down that model, but what you do like the idea of is that, right, you could have a team in Belgium, you could have a team in France, you could have a team in Austria or Switzerland, or wherever it might be. It could be beyond as well. There's a lot of connections with Brazilian clubs, for example.
Yeah.
You could definitely do with that. That then basically gives you footing in another country, and we've talked about this before. Newcastle are already behind in that sense.
Yeah.
When we enter a new country, even if it's just playing friendlies for commercial reasons, we're already behind because these other teams have been doing it for years. We need to catch up, and this is a quick way of catching up.
Yeah.
So if you are affiliated with a club in Belgium and a club in, I don't know, Romania, and the club in Brazil and a club in Australia, you're suddenly tapping into potential pipelines there. And equally, you might be able to send players there on loan and keeping them within your network rather than them getting frustrated because they're not getting first team football.
It is very important. And that's what I want to see. Like I have been looking at Alfie Harrison being a prime example. If we had a team in Belgium where we could go, right, you are going on a season-long loan, you're going to be playing senior football, show me you're worth a place in our squad.
Alex Murphy. That would have been great for Alex Murphy. I know he went to Bolton, but if we had this pathway, it would have been a path that's already trodden by other players, and you'd have familiarity and so on.
It's just we need to get better at it, and I really want us to do it, and I want us to look for. I'm looking forward to us entering the multi-club model, but is it a little bit close? Are we a little bit late to the game? Who knows? But if they come out and buy 3 or 4 clubs in the next 5 years, and all of a sudden we're right up there when it comes to players that we can bring in, we won't be giving out. But I really hope it does well for us.
Indeed. And yeah, as we said, you'd like it to be done the right way, done the smart way, that all parties are benefiting from it as best as possible, and that club culture, fan history, all that kind of stuff is maintained, rather than fans feeling like they're losing their club to a bigger club, because that's definitely how Strasbourg fans are feeling at the moment.
Yeah, Strasbourg fans absolutely hate it, which is mad because they've gotten promoted from League 2 to League 1, or mid-table kind of pushing. Yeah, they're pushing and pushing and pushing, and their fans are like, no, we don't want this. You've ripped the soul out of our club to basically become a feeder club for Chelsea. We did not want this. When you came in, you promised us the sun, moon and stars, and this is what you've turned us into. I hope we don't go down that route. I'd like us to go down the Man City route, where it looks like Man City are doing it the right way. They're taking the players off of Girona, they're taking the players off of Melbourne, but they're doing it the right way. So I really hope we do it the same ilk as Man City and not the Chelsea route.
Well, time will tell, because this is all just words and talk at the moment, but it's interesting to think about a world where we might be in that model, and it's also interesting to look at where it has worked and hasn't worked in the past, and hopefully there'll be some learnings from that. So we'll be keeping an eye out on that. Right, let's turn our attention to the weekend before we wrap up, because it is FA Cup time again. It is the fourth round. Alan, I don't know if it's a simple question or not, but was this the hardest possible draw we could have got, roughly, or up there?
It was
Away to
definitely
Aston
up
Villa?
there. It was definitely up there. But if you want to win the cup, you have to beat these teams. So why not get them out of the way early and get a handy FA Cup final when we're winning the cup this year? So we'll be okay.
Yeah, and they played yesterday at the time of
Brighton.
recording.
Yes.
And they just about won at home. I think it was
They did.
Tyrone Mings or an own
1-0,
goal.
86 minutes. Mings got it in the last couple
Was
of
it
minutes.
Mings in the end? I
Yeah.
thought it said Hinchelwood own goal. But anyway, they narrowly scraped by an out-of-form Brighton, let's say. So that does bode well for us when we're coming off the back of an away win. But it is only one win, like we said. The two questions really then are, how serious will they take it? They've got a lot of games to play and they're flying it in the league. And then, how serious will we take it? With everything going on, you know, despite the fact that we picked up a lovely win against Spurs, we've a lot more to do in the league. Do you still think that Eddie Howe's going into this going, oh, I'd love to win this FA Cup?
Absolutely going into this saying, I would love to win this FA Cup. There's no way he's looking at this and saying, we'll take it or leave it. It's not in Eddie Howe's mantra to not give it his all. The only thing is, we have an awful lot of injuries. So do Villa. Villa's starting midfield is injured. Bar Kamara. Like, they've no McGinn, they've no Tielemans, they're just missing players all over the place. Now, they came to James's a couple of weeks ago and roasted us. They absolutely roasted us. There's no point in saying anything other than that, but it's an opportunity. And yes, the win against Brighton the other day was their first home win in 3 games. It does come across as a bit of an opportunity, but we have to play well. And as I've said, I said we're going to win the cup. But so I'm really hoping we do win the cup, so I can be right again at the end of the season. But if we did go out, so long as there's a good performance behind it, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
If that's not enough motivation for the players to go and win because Alan doesn't want to look silly, I mean, I don't know what else, you know. Priorities, priorities.
I was right last year saying the Carabao Cup, and I'm going to be right this year when I said we're going to win the FA Cup.
I'll put it this way. If we beat Villa away, then I'd feel like we can do it. But I think it's a big ask, but they're not in fantastic form. Like we said, there's injuries there. And it's not out of the question. We said this before, but was it last February? We went away to the Emirates and everyone thought, yeah, that's the end of that. And we turned over Arsenal. So you never know, I suppose, is the question.
That's it.
But I am going to push you for a prediction.
We win on penalties.
Oh, I don't need penalties in my life, man. I had enough of it there when we did Bournemouth.
I know. That's why we're going to do it again. Like, it was awful, but it was brilliant. So we're going to do it again.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let's go penalties. We'll go with a 1-1. We'll go to 1-1 penalties.
Nice.
Oh God, my heart's not going to be able to take that. On Valentine's Day and all. Right. Sticking with the FA Cup, and I'm going to bring a quick quiz into it before we talk about meetups for the weekend, Al. Trivia question more than a quiz, seeing as it's just the two of us. You were a young man when Newcastle United reached back-to-back FA Cup finals in 1998 against Arsenal and 1999 against Man United. Yes. But what I want to know is, can you tell me the 5 players who started both of those FA Cup finals? Bearing in mind, one was under Kenny Dalglish, the other was under Ruud Gullit, and there were 2 players who started one but not the other.
Shearer?
Alan Shearer is correct. Started both finals under both.
Rob Lee?
Rob Lee is correct. Was playing in midfield in both finals.
Gary Speed?
Gary Speed is correct. Started both finals. He's on a roll. How old were you for the 98 final?
5.
Sure, you should remember that.
Yeah. I'm fairly sure Given didn't. I think Harper played in one of them, didn't he?
I can tell you, Given did start against Arsenal in the 98 final, but didn't start against Man United in 1990. It was, in fact, Steve Harper.
Yeah.
For some reason.
He was injured.
He was on the bench.
Oh, he's on the bench?
Yeah, no, I remember. I actually remember this because I would have been 12 maybe. and he opted for Harper. I remember he actually chose to play Harper in that final. So you've got two more who started both.
Barton.
I can tell you Warren Barton did start against Arsenal in 1998, but was on the bench against Man United in 1999. Also looks like he played in midfield in 98, which I don't remember.
I am kind of struggling here now. I'm trying to...
So
centre half.
You have a centre half.
Yeah.
Who played both, and you have a forward. I'm going to say forward and not striker. That's again the Football Manager head, but
98. It wasn't Dyer. It wasn't Dyer.
No, Dyer wasn't there.
Delano? No.
Solano was only in the starting lineup for the Man United game, but wasn't at all in the squad in 98. So he would have been there, I believe, but must have been injured.
This is getting frustrating now. Who played in the left back then? I'll go on, put me out of my misery. Unless it was Dabby's ass, the centre half, was it?
Dabby's ass is the centre half. He started in both, correct. And you've got one player left. So, how can I give you clues about this guy? There's some very obvious clues. The second I say, if I was to tell you where he's from, what he looked like, or what he's most famous for, you'll get it straight away.
That cat's by it.
Timori Ketspaya is correct. Started both finals, which I didn't realise. That's insane.
Yeah, mad.
So he was in the 98 squad under Kenny Dalglish. Started as a striker, I suppose, alongside Shearer, kind of drifting out. And under Ruud Gullit started the 99 final as well. Wow.
I'm impressed with yourself for getting that. I'm going to be honest.
I actually think you've done very well.
Yeah.
You've done very well to get all them. Like other names you could have had, like some player, like you named everyone who was in both squads, like the likes of Pistone, Howie, Stuart Pearce, Batty were all under Dalglish, whereas under Gullit it was Haman, Charvet, Andy Griffin, Didi Haman, Didier Domi. Like wow.
How did we get to that point?
They were good times indeed. Speaking of good times, weekend we have 2 meetups taking place in the Irish Mags community for the Aspen.
Indeed. So we are back to our regular haunt in Dublin after having an away day in Dublin in where did we go? The Woolshed Bar and Grill. Mm-hmm. And I nearly had a heart attack when I got asked for €8.70 for a pint.
Oh God.
Oh God is right. I nearly collapsed. €8.70.
Was it a pint of like brandy or something?
Fucking liquid gold it would want to be. No, a pint of Orchard Thieves, €8.70. I was like, having 2 of these and I'll be going home.
Back to the Bleaker we go.
Yeah, so we're back to the Bleaker as always, back in our regular haunt. Johnny is back. We're all good to go. And then down in Cork, so if you're anywhere around Cork, it's Quinlan's Bar. Quinlan's Bar, Blackpool, County Cork. So if you're around either of those, pop in, say hello, and join in the madness. As always, is a good crack whenever we have a match.
Super stuff. Great to have those meetups taking place, and there'll be plenty more to come as usual. If you're planning to have any meetups, or if you'd like to have any meetups, get in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
And we will facilitate. Alan Williamson has flags to share all around the country if needed.
We even have a new flag for next week as well.
Ooh,
eyes
spoilers.
Emoji. Spoiler, eyes emoji.
Spoilers.
And it's from a new flag company. Ooh.
I've not heard about this. I'm keen to know who's going to be on this flag. Will we
Nobody
get to see it on
on
the podcast? Will we get an exclusive on the pod? Do you have it? He has it in the bag. Oh, listeners, you're in for a treat. You're getting an Alan Williamson exclusive, a brand new Irish Mags flag. He's currently taking out of his Newcastle United school bag. He is unfolding it. For those not watching on YouTube, it is black and white. It says Irish Mags on tour, and it has the blue star. I think you got that upside down, Alan.
I do have it upside down.
It has the blue star logo in the middle with the city in the background. That looks lovely. It's better that you turned it around because it's got a little green, white, and gold flag, and when you had it upside down, it looked like a cigarette. So always keep it the right way. Yeah. That looks lovely. Brilliant.
The halfvolley.com have supplied their first flag to us, so big thank you to Scott and all the lads to halfvolley.com, because this is an absolute cracker of a flag. It's a little bit bigger than what we're used to as well, so the bigger the better.
I have a count on how many flags we have in total now.
I could go through the bag right here in front of me. I think I have 9, and then there's about 6 or 7 floating around the country as well for other lads that have organised meetups. But I have all the Dublin ones. The other thing I want to shamelessly plug, while you can hear me rustling in the bag, is this. We actually have
these the pins.
These are the pins. We have Irish Mags pins for sale on them. So if you see me anywhere, I will always have my little bag of pins on me that looks like a bag of drugs, if I'm totally honest with you. So yeah, if you'd like one of the pins, just get in contact with any of us. We are selling them. Can't actually remember how much Tev told me to sell them for, but I will get the prices guaranteed, and if you see me, I'll have them on me. So
slide into Alan's DMs if you'd like an Irish Mags pin, but they'll be made available as much as we can, either in Newcastle at home games or at the meetups that are held.
Absolutely.
Make sure that reps have them all over the place. Right, that brings episode 113 to a close for this week, Alan. We may be joined by Chris Show next week. We may not. Who knows? He likes to keep it all shrouded in mystery. But in the meantime, make sure you're keeping an eye on all our socials, which are down below in the description, as are the links for our sponsors. As we mentioned, the half volley as well, if you'd like to order anything of the Irish Mags gear. And check out theirishmags.com for all the latest photos, updates, meetup information, everything you need to know. We'll be back next week for more Irish Magnus. So until then, thank you, Alan. Thank you, listeners. How are the lads? Slán
all you. Thank you, Paul.
See you all very soon. Thank you.